For 15 years, Bob Mitchell was the neighborhood's most fascinating resident. The retired CIA agent shared incredible stories about Cold War operations and gave security advice to everyone. But when FBI agents knocked on his door in 2024, neighbors learned the shocking truth: Bob Mitchell had been dead for 20 years. The man they'd trusted was Viktor Petrov, a Soviet spy who was supposed to have been eliminated decades ago. Before you watch this video, don't forget to subscribe to Beneath Stories, because sometimes the most terrifying threats are hiding in plain sight, right inside your own home. Spring 2009. Bob Mitchell moved into 1247 Elm Street in Westfield, Connecticut. The quiet, well-dressed man in his 60s told neighbors he was a retired CIA operative enjoying peaceful civilian life. Bob quickly became the neighborhood's most intriguing resident. He had fascinating stories about international assignments, spoke multiple languages fluently, and possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of world affairs. Bob worked in Eastern Europe during the 1980s, neighbor Patricia Hammond told friends. He has incredible stories about the fall of the Berlin Wall. Bob was helpful and security conscious. He advised neighbors about home protection, identified suspicious activities, and offered to watch properties during vacations. His house was immaculate and fortress-like. Security cameras, reinforced doors, and a sophisticated alarm system that he'd installed personally. Bob explained it was old habits from the agency. Neighbors felt safer knowing a former intelligence professional lived on their street. Bob's stories captivated everyone who met him. He described covert operations behind the Iron Curtain, close calls with foreign agents, and the adrenaline of intelligence work during the Cold War's final years. "I was in Prague when the Velvet Revolution began," Bob told neighbor Tom Harrison during a backyard barbecue. The agency had assets throughout Eastern Europe. Dangerous times, but necessary work. Bob's details were remarkably specific. He knew classified operational procedures, geographical layouts of foreign cities, and historical events that weren't widely publicized until years later. "He must have had very high clearance," Patricia Hammond observed. "The things he knows about Soviet intelligence operations are incredible." Bob occasionally received official-looking mail addressed to Robert Mitchell, which reinforced his cover story. He spoke Russian fluently and could identify accents from different regions. Children in the neighborhood loved his adventure stories, though Bob always emphasized the serious nature of his former work. Bob's expertise extended beyond stories. He provided practical security advice that proved remarkably effective. When the Harrison family's house was burglarized, Bob's recommended improvements prevented future break-ins. "Bob told us exactly which entry points were vulnerable," Tom Harrison explained to police. His suggestions worked perfectly. Bob helped elderly neighbors install better locks, advised parents about child safety, and identified suspicious vehicles before problems developed. He seemed to have an uncanny ability to spot potential threats. Bob would notice unusual patterns, unfamiliar faces, and activities that didn't belong in their suburban environment. "It's like he has radar for danger," said neighbor Jennifer Chen. "Bob sees things the rest of us miss completely." Bob's vigilance created a sense of protection throughout the neighborhood. Crime rates dropped noticeably after his arrival, though police attributed it to increased community awareness. Local law enforcement appreciated Bob's cooperation and considered him a valuable community asset. Over 15 years, Bob became deeply integrated into Westfield community life. He attended town meetings, participated in neighborhood watch programs, and volunteered for local charities. Bob's background made him incredibly useful during emergencies. He had medical training, crisis management skills, and a calm demeanor under pressure. "When my husband had a heart attack, Bob knew exactly what to do," recalled elderly resident Mary Sullivan. "He probably saved Frank's life." Bob maintained his property meticulously and helped neighbors with home improvement projects. His technical skills and attention to detail were exceptional. He seemed to have unlimited time for community involvement but never discussed family, former colleagues, or personal relationships from his CIA years. Bob's very private about his past, Patricia Hammond noted. I suppose that's normal for someone in intelligence work. By 2020, a few neighbors began noticing subtle inconsistencies in Bob's stories. Retired police officer Jack Morrison had worked with federal agencies and found some details puzzling. Bob's knowledge of CIA procedures seemed remarkably current for someone who'd retired in the 1990s. His operational terminology and technical references reflected modern intelligence practices. Bob talks about surveillance equipment that wasn't available when he claims to have retired, Morrison observed privately. More concerning was Bob's reaction to unexpected visitors. Delivery drivers, census workers, and door-to-door salespeople seemed to make him unusually nervous. Jack noticed Bob had multiple escape routes from his house and kept vehicles positioned for quick departure. That's serious paranoia, even for a former agent. Bob's foreign language skills also seemed broader than typical CIA training. He spoke fluent Czech, Hungarian, and several Slavic dialects with native-level proficiency. Jack Morrison began discreetly investigating Bob's background. Public records showed Robert Mitchell purchasing the Elm Street house in 2009, but earlier documentation was surprisingly sparse. Bob's supposed CIA career couldn't be verified through unofficial channels. While classified information was expected, basic employment confirmation should have been possible. I have contacts at federal agencies, Morrison explained to his wife. Nobody has any record of Robert Mitchell in intelligence work. Morrison discovered Bob's social security number had been issued in 2008, the year before he moved to Westfield. For a man claiming to be in his 60s, this was impossible. Property tax records showed Bob paying in cash, avoiding financing that would require extensive background checks. His utility accounts were set up with minimal documentation. Morrison realized Bob might be using a false identity, but couldn't understand why someone would impersonate a CIA agent for 15 years in a quiet suburban neighborhood. In March 2024, Morrison contacted FBI tip line about his suspicions regarding Bob Mitchell. He expected a routine follow-up call, but agents arrived at his door within hours. Mr. Morrison, we need to discuss your neighbor immediately, said Special Agent Sarah Williams. This is related to an ongoing national security investigation. The FBI revealed they'd been tracking someone using the Robert Mitchell identity. The real Bob Mitchell had died in a car accident in Minnesota in 2004. Your neighbor has been using a deceased person's identity for 20 years, Agent Williams explained. We believe he's a foreign intelligence operative who's been hiding in plain sight. The FBI had been monitoring international communications that referenced a deep-cover Soviet asset living under assumed identity in Connecticut. Recent intelligence suggested this person was preparing to activate after decades of dormancy. We think your neighbor Bob is actually Viktor Petrov, a GRU agent who disappeared from Soviet records in the 1980s. FBI surveillance began immediately, but Bob's behavior suggested he was aware of increased attention. His movements became more cautious, and he installed additional security equipment. He's definitely trained in counter-surveillance, Agent Williams reported. This guy knows exactly what we're looking for. Bob had been maintaining contact with foreign handlers through encrypted communications disguised as routine internet activity. Analysis revealed a sophisticated network of sleeper agents across the United States. Viktor Petrov was one of the most dangerous Soviet operatives of the Cold War era, CIA liaison agent David Park explained. He specialized in long-term infiltration and intelligence gathering. The FBI discovered Bob had been systematically collecting information about military contractors, defense industry employees, and government workers living in the surrounding area. His 15 years of community involvement weren't altruistic. They were reconnaissance for a mission that was only now becoming active. Intercepted communications revealed Bob was preparing for a major intelligence operation. Foreign handlers had sent activation codes and specific mission parameters. Bob's target was Westfield Defense Systems, a classified military contractor located 20 miles from his neighborhood. Several employees lived in the area, and Bob had cultivated relationships with their families. He's been grooming assets for over a decade, Agent Park reported. Bob knows intimate details about defense contractor families, their schedules, their vulnerabilities. The operation involved compromising computer systems at the defense facility using social engineering tactics Bob had perfected during his years as a trusted neighbor. FBI discovered Bob had copies of house keys, security codes, and personal information from dozens of neighbors. His helpful security advice had been reconnaissance for potential infiltration routes. Every time Bob helped someone with home security, he was actually mapping their vulnerabilities, Agent Williams realized. FBI agents surrounded Bob's house at dawn on April 15, 2024. They expected resistance from a trained operative, but Bob surrendered without incident. Viktor Petrov, you're under arrest for espionage, identity theft, and conspiracy against the United States, Agent Williams announced. Bob's calm demeanor never changed. I think you have the wrong person, he said quietly. I'm Robert Mitchell, retired CIA. You can verify my service record. Inside Bob's house, agents found sophisticated intelligence equipment, encrypted communications devices, and detailed files on hundreds of local residents. Most shocking was a room containing Soviet-era propaganda, Russian military medals, and photographs of Bob with high-ranking GRU officers from the 1980s. The evidence is overwhelming, Agent Park stated. This man has been conducting espionage operations on American soil for over 40 years. Viktor Petrov's true identity and background shocked intelligence agencies. Born in Leningrad in 1955, he'd been trained as a deep-cover operative designed to infiltrate American society. Petrov was supposed to establish an American identity and remain dormant until activation, CIA analyst Dr. Rachel Torres explained. He exceeded all expectations for operational security. Petrov had entered the United States in 1983 using forged documents, but had remained inactive through the Soviet Union's collapse. He'd operated as a freelance spy for post-Soviet intelligence services. The real Robert Mitchell's identity was chosen carefully. Mitchell had died without close family, making identity theft less likely to be discovered. Petrov spent months studying Mitchell's background before assuming his identity, FBI investigators revealed. He knew everything about Mitchell's life, education, and personality. The operation demonstrated how foreign intelligence services could maintain deep cover assets for decades, waiting for the right moment to activate. Viktor Petrov was charged with numerous federal crimes including espionage, identity theft, and conspiracy. He eventually accepted a plea agreement to avoid life imprisonment. The Westfield neighborhood struggled with the revelation that their trusted friend had been deceiving them for 15 years. Many felt violated and manipulated. Bob knew everything about our families, our routines, our security systems, Patricia Hammond said. He used our trust against us for years. Several defense contractor employees had to relocate after discovering Petrov had detailed intelligence about their work and personal lives. The FBI investigation revealed a network of similar deep-cover operatives throughout the United States, leading to additional arrests and ongoing counterintelligence operations. This case demonstrates how sophisticated modern espionage has become, Agent Williams explained. Enemy agents don't just steal secrets, they become part of our communities. The Elm Street house was thoroughly searched and decontaminated before being sold. New residents were briefed about its history and potential security concerns. For the Westfield community, Viktor Petrov's deception served as a stark reminder that threats to national security can hide behind friendly faces and helpful neighbors. The case prompted changes in background verification procedures and increased awareness about potential foreign intelligence operations in suburban America. Petrov's 15-year operation proved that the Cold War's espionage legacy continues in modern forms, with enemy agents adapting to blend seamlessly into American society while pursuing long-term intelligence objectives. Thank you for watching this investigation into Viktor Petrov's decades-long deception. Subscribe to Beneath Stories for more cases revealing the disturbing realities that can hide behind normal suburban facades. Because sometimes the greatest threats to our safety come not from outside our homes, but from the hidden spaces within the walls we trust to protect us.